Our next presenter is Cassandra Edwards. Her project has involved lots of VR 180 filming, and we'll hear all about that very shortly. Her academic supervisor is Kerreen Ely-Harper, who's in the back, from the School of Media, Creative Arts and Social Inquiry, and co-supervision from Dr. Andrea Rassell, who's one of the Forest Research Foundation Fellows in working with the HIVE team.
Cool, thank you, Andrew. Hello, everyone. Hi, Mum, who's watching online. My name is Cassandra Edwards, and I'm going to be talking about immersive cinematics. So, what is immersive cinema? Well, it's conveniently named because it's just that, it's immersive. It's an experience that invites you into the story, to be a part of the narrative and immerses you into that world. Unlike traditional 2D cinema, you're not just a casual observer looking at the screen for passive enjoyment. You're being drawn into a space where all that exists is the narrative around you. Immersive cinema demands your attention, and in an era where attention spans are shorter and people have the capacity to be on several screens at any one time, right now seems like a perfect opportunity to explore new and exciting ways of creating this kind of cinematic experience. So, the objective. Early on in the research, my supervisor, Dr. Kerreen Ely-Harper, and I discussed what topics we could explore and what might be fun to create around the idea of immersive cinema. Now, I'm a skater and I love roller skating, so we come up with a plan to create an immersive experience to invite people to join me into something that brings me so much joy. We both spoke about getting motion sickness sometimes in VR. So early on in the piece, I knew that I didn't want to just grab the camera, jump on skates, and invite people to move along with me. I wanted to make sure that this was an accessible experience, and if I made it like that, I myself would not be able to enjoy it. So I wanted to make sure I was making something that people could enjoy. So the plan seemed kind of simple at the beginning. Film me skating in VR. Skate, film it, sure. This was not the journey. So, the idea was to create a short film, which I called A Love Letter to Skating. So to create our immersive experience, we wanted to ensure we had a variety of outputs, that anything I filmed could be viewed on 2D, 3D, and VR. But we also wanted to try and experiment with something new and exciting in the VR world. So for this film, we utilized a VR 180 camera and used a technique called Gaussian splatting. If you haven't heard of Gaussian splatting, that's perfectly fine. About 12 weeks ago, I hadn't heard of it either. But let's start with VR 180. So, partnering with the HIVE on this project, I knew one thing was going to be certain, that I would get to play with some really fun cameras and tech. And boy, they delivered. I was lucky enough to use the Canon R5C. This is an incredible cinema camera paired with a dual fisheye lens. The camera has the ability to shoot in 8K RAW. To put this into perspective, you might be familiar with 4K, which is considered ultra high definition. Now, a 4K screen has approximately 8.2 million pixels, which is simply the picture elements that make up a TV picture. 8K is 4 times that. If someone wants to quickly do the maths, we're looking at 33 million pixels, which gives us incredible quality. And so for VR, this is important. However, with great resolution comes great responsibility. Delving into VR filmmaking for the first time was a steep learning curve. I come from a traditional 2D filmmaking background, and within filmmaking, there are a relatively standard set of rules in regard to framing and composing a shot. Now, you can step outside of these rules creatively, but for the most part, you can rely on these rules to help you compose a great frame, a great image. My first test outside of the camera proved to me that VR filmmaking doesn't care about these rules. The camera captures everything within the 180-degree space from the ground to the sky. This poses challenges in terms of what you can place within this space. It also changes your view in how to set up a frame. Typically, you'll set up a frame on a 2D camera, look at the picture, and adjust accordingly because you can see exactly what the audience is going to see. With this lens, you're looking at 2 circles in a fisheye perspective, which makes simple things like judging distances and getting the camera focused. It makes it difficult. On the right, you'll see a picture of me trying to set up a frame that I'm also skating through. This was one of many, many, many tests that I had to do to try and work out what was going to work. So these are some of my tests. When viewing through the lens, all I kept thinking was, I'm too far away from the camera. I look tiny in the viewpiece and I have to get closer. With skating and expensive equipment, that obviously poses risks. So I had to be careful about what I was doing. After shooting footage, I had to get it all processed. Keep in mind we're working with 8K, so file sizes are roughly 4 times bigger than what a 4K file size. For example, I'm talking about 10 gigs per minute of footage. Luckily, with access to the HIVE, I was able to get this footage processed a lot faster, but it was still a lengthy process to get to the point where I could review the footage and see if it turned out the way that I'd planned when shooting. Most of the time, it was a no. Skating closer to the camera was absolutely not the solution, and once you view it in the intended 180 degrees, I realized that there was a lot that I had to change, but this was all part of the problem solving that I spent the first couple of weeks doing. So, that isn't a very, very brief overview of the VR 180 phase of this project. Let's talk Gaussian splatting. So, what is a Gaussian splat? If you look at the image, you could be forgiven for thinking that maybe some of this is just a photo that was taken on an iPhone. It's close to that. It's actually hundreds of photos taken from multiple angles to create a 3D render of that environment. What you're looking at are millions of particles pulled from those images to create what is called a point cloud. Now, this actually was taken on my iPhone and processed through an app called Luma AI. This is a brand new app on the marketplace that is changing the game for people working in the 3D space. It's currently only available on iPhone 11 and above. However, there is a desktop application that can do the same kind of processing. While this process of converting images to 3D isn't a new one, what makes Gaussian splatting so exciting is that this is real-time rendering of 3D environments. To give you an example, the first thing you want to do is capture a static scene. And you want to capture as much data as possible. So by data, I simply mean camera angles, making sure you get good coverage. From this data, a point cloud is created, millions of individual particles creating the image. From this, Luma AI uses artificial intelligence, compiling all of the particles and lighting conditions to create a mesh and gives you this. From here, you have a 3D render that can be immediately used in 3D software such as Unreal Engine and Blender. Now, this entire process from start to finish took maybe an hour, probably less. I took that render in the park, put my phone down, and half an hour later, I instantly had a photorealistic render. Now I just had to work out how to fit this into my project. Luckily for me, although Luma AI is new, when I started this project, they were developing integration into Unreal Engine. For those familiar, Unreal Engine is a 3D creation tool. What this means is that I could pull the 3D render I'd captured on my phone into Unreal Engine and start manipulating things like lighting and environment. Now, this was exciting in itself. The makeup of the Gaussian splat means that lighting isn't baked into the mesh. They're completely impacted by the artificial light I created around it. Now, something exciting happened halfway through my project. The Luma AI app came out of beta and was fully integrated into Unreal Engine. So this little notification on my phone meant that something entirely new had emerged. The ability to create 3D worlds around my splat with the full capabilities of Unreal Engine. For those unfamiliar, this is Hyde Park, by the way. So this is recreated Hyde Park. I was able to fill in the gaps from my splat, add moving elements and sound. I finally felt like I was able to recreate the joy and serenity I experienced when I skate, the feeling of everything around me melting away while I'm in these environments. So I'm excited to have a VR experience to show you today. Now, the world is small and I could quite easily sink another 10 weeks into just adding aesthetic elements, but I'm pretty pleased with it so far. So this advancement also revealed to me how to incorporate my film with this VR experiencing using the Gaussian splat. A VR media player, a cinema in virtual reality to view it. So I took the term immersive cinematics quite literally and created an immersive cinema. You can walk around one of the scenes of the film and even watch the film with me standing next to you. You don't have to do that, but it is an option. You can watch the film from any vantage point. With the VR headset, you can walk around the environment and, yeah. Sorry. There is an interactive play button that you simply hit with your hand and the film starts playing. Now the film is in 2D, but with more development, the opportunities for viewing in VR are limitless. I could definitely recreate something similar to the cylinder or the dome, or you could have another button that takes you into the VR 180 film. So, I realize there is a massive jump from me testing to getting to this point, but most of the remaining weeks with the film was spent testing and troubleshooting, really. So, the film is completed with multiple outputs. VR 180 viewable in all VR compatible players and 3D, a 2D render to watch on a regular screen, and immersive cinema created for viewing. So during the allocated time, the film will be viewable on the cylinder in stereoscopic 3D, the dome in 2D, and the VR experience that I've created will be available to see on the Quest VR headset. This is just showing the very, very, very basic workflow of how I created all of the outputs. So, while I thought this was going to be my journey, my first dive into research ended up looking like this. Regardless of this roller coaster, I'm so relieved to be standing here today and sharing this experience. First and foremost, I want to thank my principal supervisor, Dr. Kerreen. I actually can't see where you are. Thank you, Kerreen. Thank you for helping me at the heart of this internship, and thank you for your unwavering support. This project wouldn't exist without you, and I'm very grateful. A massive thank you to Dr. Andrea Rassell, Daniel Adams, and Dr. Michael Ovens. Your feedback and advice throughout this project has been invaluable. Thank you. I want to thank the team at the HIVE and their endless support and the incredible opportunity to be a part of this. And I want to thank the Makazi for helping me with endless technical issues that I was experiencing. Also, thank you to my other HIVE interns. It's been a pleasure working with you. Any questions?